Alright, I'm back here, and got black again. So the first game of the session turned out pretty badly. Some pretty crazy ideas of leaving my king in the center, so let's see if we could do a little better here. And not get destroyed like that. Two knights out like that, I feel like I should play in the center. Get a pawn center started there. Guess maybe he'll challenge that with d4, yeah. The thing is, if I play bishop g4, he could just attack the bishop with a knight, although I can retreat it. I could just play bishop f5. Actually, I can play bishop f5 because he doesn't have the c-pawn moved. Like normally with a queen's gambit or something, he would move the c-pawn, and then playing f5 early is tough because he can play queen b3 and hit this pawn. But he can't do that now. So I think I can safely move the bishop outside the pawn chain. And that, keeps a little bit more eye on the center here. It lets me play e6. And you have kind of like a... Yeah, okay. Got another system player on our hands. Alright, so one thing that I know is really annoying is when they play knight b5 early and they're just hitting this pawn. And I was watching an old video from Squareology, which is a great channel by the way. Daniel, I forget his last name. He's an international master. He's funny and he's got really clear explanations. If you haven't seen that channel, you should check that out. So I just like to kind of stop this. I'd like to be able to play c5 at some point, so I don't really want to play c6. But c6 does protect this pawn and keep the knight out, so it's kind of a double purpose move. So I'd like to do that now, and then I'll probably have to play for a slower c5 later. Maybe getting too greedy in the opening with like a6 and then wanting to play c5 in one shot later is a little too greedy, is what I meant. So I'd like to be able to play e6, bishop b7, castles, and then maybe go after his bishop. A lot of these London system players, yeah, I was just going to say we'll play h3 at some point, realizing that at some point I'd like to go for their bishop pair. I could do the same, but I'm black, so I don't have the same tempo advantage as white as... I don't know how to say that. I have the black pieces, so I don't want to be too slow. And he could go after my bishop pair. In which case, I think I'll give him the bishop pair, but maybe drop it back to g6 and then take with the h-pawn, and I'll have the h-file. I've seen John Bartholomew play those kind of setups before. I know he likes to play that pawn structure. I thought that he would try to go after my bishop there. I am going to challenge this knight, so I don't want to let it sit there, and I also don't want to let him be able to play f4 like we saw in the last game, where he can get a little extra protection on that knight. If he takes the knight, both captures are interesting, because if I take with the knight, I'm kind of lending support to these pawn pushes here. I kind of like having a knight on d7 to support those pawn advances. However, queen takes is pretty natural too. He's making a lot of pawn moves here in the opening. So what I'd like to do, I still am primed for c5 at some point, and I don't think he would be able to stop that. But I am going to... I was going to say I'm going to try to get castled first, but should I play c5 before he can play b5? Or should I play a5? If I play a5, then later b5, then my b5... Then if I play a5, then later c5, my b5 square is weak. Just c5 immediately, probably. I think it's safe to play this now. I have a couple pieces on that. Even if he takes the knight, I can take with the other knight. If he takes it now, I get my bishop out quickly, so I don't expect that. I just don't want to sit in a cramped position all game without having any pawn breaks, and if I had let him play b4, then it would have been probably tough. Okay, so I wonder if I should even, if I take the knight, bishop takes, knight, I can't do that. Let me get castled first before I start doing crazy stuff. He could take the pawn now, but I can capture it two different ways. He doesn't have queen checks because of a c pawn. If he plays bishop out, I guess that's might be an argument for why I could have played a6 earlier. Because by having played a6 with my pawn still on c7, I would have stopped any bishop b4 business and also been able to play the c5 move in one tempo. So that's, I had thought about that, but I didn't give it enough thought, obviously. So I guess he could play bishop b4 now, so that after castles he could take twice and reduce my support of the c5 square. But if he liquefies like that, okay, well I can't take with the queen obviously because of that bishop b4 idea, as I mentioned. So I think he was going for like a one move threat there. Now, should I just take and then take again and then try to play on the c file? Or should I let him take? If I let him take, I could potentially get this pawn structure with pawns on f5, g6, f7, h7, and then fianchetto to the bishop this way. So it's actually probably not too bad, but that, well, he would be able to immediately capture that pawn, so I guess that's not good. So I'd have to drop the bishop back to g6. Takes, I get the h file. Taking, I don't really see how that benefits me. I could take this pawn right now. I'm going to drop the bishop back because I expect him to take it, but if he doesn't take it, then I'll be able to take his d pawn. Well, he'd still be able to take it with captures, and then queen takes, so I guess what he would be able to avoid is he wouldn't have to trade a center pawn for a flank pawn. Kind of like that Sicilian type idea, so okay. He might castle now. I think I can castle too, even with the h file open. Seems a little funny, but I mean I can't really go long, so. Long term, if I'm castled, I'm not sure if the idea is to. Ugh. Sorry, it's like 2:30 a.m. I'm not sure if I should play f5 and maybe king f7, like castles, and then eventually f5, king f7, and then try to get back on the h file. Seems a little slow. If I'm going to do that, maybe I should just play f5 immediately. f5, king f7, and try to play on the h file. Should I play g5 immediately and kind of push this bishop somewhere? Where is it going to go? Okay. Well, maybe I should plan to use the h file later in the game. I think I'm going to castle since last time I got crushed by not castling. And most of my pawns are on light squares to complement my bishop, so I think that's good. A lot of his pawns are on dark squares, but it's outside the chain, so I think that's really a bad thing. Okay. Alright, I gotta do something for the wife here. Alright, yeah, so his idea is to push here. I can't really get on this b8 square to challenge his b file play because of this annoying bishop. So one thing I could try to do is bother that bishop, and I think I will do that. Maybe even offer a trade of the bishops just because it's such a kind of a good piece considering his plan of trying to play on the queen side. Okay, so should I take or push here? Probably at some point I have to take this. Although now he can take with the bishop, actually. I probably should take with the bishop, although bishop takes, still probably bishop d6, or maybe b6. No, bishop d6, trying to push e4. or queen d6. Okay. What about, so he's, okay. That knight back here, actually. Switching the places of the knight with the bishop. Be able to drop this bishop back. I want to challenge this diagonal. He can just support the bishop with maybe with the queen or something. I'm getting rid of my quote-unquote good bishop, but his bishop isn't looking too sorry here on e5, so... If he takes with the rook, I get a tempo. Takes with the pawn, still the knight over to d7, I guess. Probably either way I play that move. Gotta do something really quick for the wifey. Alright, you probably hear something in the background there, some dishwashing going on. Okay, oh, I didn't lose any time there, I didn't move yet. Okay, I want to get my queen out here. But what am I going to do here? My pawns are pointing towards the queen side again, suggesting that I should play over there. So how am I going to do that? With a6 and b5? Or queen a5 and then just push the b pawn? Try to play on the open c file maybe? But at some point he can move the knight and just play c3, so I don't really see what I'll get on the c file so easily. Queen f6, I mean, this pawn I don't expect to be weak, like he can just move the knight and play c3 again. But would I get anything on the king side here? I don't really have a good outpost for the knight, that's kind of annoying, because he can always kick it. Although trying to get the knight to c4 and then inducing maybe b3, then he wouldn't be able to play c3, so I could try for that idea. Let's see how that works out. So I wouldn't say I'm threatening to put the knight in, but I just kind of indicating that I want to put the knight in here, and then let's see if I can try to induce b3 and then maybe even just come back with the knight. And then actually even rerouting the knight back over to d6, where maybe it could come into a better square at some point. But then I might have chances to attack the c pawn a little bit more easily, or play down the c file because it'd be a little bit weaker. Another idea might be like queen d7, knight e5, trying to trade, and then maybe playing this area of the board. I'd like to keep the attention over here if I can. Okay. So now I'm actually immediately threatening a fork, which I'm pretty sure he'll see, but this knight is a little bit annoying here on c4. Now it's a little bit hard for him to play b3, so probably it was helpful that I got it there. I feel like I saw a Chess Explained game where sometimes, and not in this structure, but where he was putting the knight on a4 to kind of slow down pawn play too. I'll have to go back and see if I can find that. I don't know if I can, but okay. So yeah, basically he wasted a move there, which is nice. So he's trying to, I think, look for ways to attack me, so he's kind of focused on that. Knight f6 to attack that pawn. Okay, let's protect b5 and just try to keep any knight jumps out of that. Again, it's hard for him to kick this knight, at least immediately. Queen f6 probably isn't the best square for the queen, because at some point he can just play rook e3 and slide it over and kick it. 3 minutes left. Okay, so he wants to try to go into a weak square too. That makes sense. Although, Queen A5 here, Knight here. Try to trade queens. Takes, and then he just takes this pawn. So probably, I don't think I can ever really. Can I play B6 here? B6. I'd have to keep protecting that with the queen, but maybe like Queen D6, centralize and keeping an eye on here. Is he going to be able to really attack it again? Queen here, and he gets forked immediately. This seems a little strange, but let's try it. Let's just keep him out of this nice square. A good plan with knights a lot of times is try to restrict them, but this scene feels a little loose with my pawns here. Okay. So he was able to play that, okay. So now I have to be careful, because if I play Queen D6, I wouldn't have any retreat square for the knight, although he can't ever attack the knight now. So, be nice to play rook over and then maybe try to push the... I don't really want to do that, though. I want to keep this locked down if I can. So let's keep the eye on the pawn. The knight also has it. He's always sort of got to be careful about forks. His knight is offside. He can try to trade the knight. Probably he should do that. Yeah, I'm going to let him take it if he wants. Takes, and then playing this rook over just because I feel like I might need a rook either to keep protecting this pawn or to slide over to the b file. It's hard to see how he'll attack me on that f2 square. Alright, so I definitely want to take with the queen here, take with the piece, and keep pressure on his backward pawn. So now he has to maybe trade and then protect the pawn. That feels like I'm in a more active position. Only got 130 left. I've got to hurry up here. I don't really expect him to trade, but if he doesn't, he's got to defend the pawn. Let me take a look at this. If he just defends the pawn, do I just take? Then try to get the king over and double? Or take... but see, taking he could take with the pawn, and then I can't like play b5 and put a rook on c4. So I'd really prefer for him to take. So maybe threaten to triple. If he pushes here, probably I'll have to keep it locked. I could even play b5 immediately, maybe. I like that he doesn't have this outpost square for rooks later either. He's letting a lot of time go down here. Okay, so I think just trying to triple here is a pretty reasonable plan. He's going to have this backward pawn to have to defend the whole game, basically. So, okay, so he's going to defend passively. This feels like there probably should even be some kind of tactic. Wow, okay, so he wants to just defend passively. So, given the time situation, I'm going to do that. And I feel like I'm clearly better here. So, I'm just going to stick a rook on the strong outpost square. And maybe I can get my king all the way over. Okay, oh, he didn't have any time left. Yeah, I guess what would my plan be here? Try to get my king all the way over and then play a5, takes, or maybe get a rook on the a file. Or maybe, let's see, king d6 and play for like f6 and d6 probably is bad because it's rook's on the d file. Yeah, it would be pretty tough actually. I mean, he's passively defending, so I'd have to come up with another weakness. So how would I create another weakness? Maybe actually b5 wasn't a great idea. But b5 does let me play a6 at some point, so I could maybe just play rook a8, a5, takes, and then he's got to he's got to defend both of these pawns. It's still really hard because he can do it, but clearly I think black is the one trying to do something here. So yeah, that game was interesting. Well, I didn't get attacked. That's good. Let's take a look at the computer analysis and see how it goes. Okay, so you got the computer analysis here, and looks like I played a pretty good game, as did my opponent, actually. We both had very similar profiles here. He had an inaccuracy. I actually didn't have any inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. That's pretty cool. But he ran out of time, so it would have been interesting. While the computer analysis was running, I kind of thought of something in this end position where, like, there's that tactic where sometimes you can take a pawn and then you can take the rook behind it, but I can't take this pawn because the rook's covering it, and I can't take this pawn because this pawn's covering it. So he wouldn't have to take with this sensitive pawn and give up the rook, I mean. So maybe one plan might be to try to push this pawn. I might have to really slowly do this, like put the rook here first, push this pawn, takes, and then I've got two backward pawns, where I could sort of be attacking those. I could also maybe then drop the rook back over to c8. Then I would have doubled rooks here, and there would be no a pawn here to protect this pawn. So then at some point I might be threatening to take this pawn, pawn takes, and then rook takes. But I guess to stop that, he can just get his king over and protect his rooks. Also get the king over to help protect the pawn and free up one of his rooks. And actually, if he can do that, like if he gets the king over here, maybe maybe what I should actually plan to do, like, because if he has a free rook and I just leave my rooks here attacking, but they can never really attack, then he has a free rook and I don't, in a way. So I wonder if my plan should be to reroute the rook, or maybe I never should have put it here, I don't know. Put my other rook here and then play for the a file, because that's probably the only file that can open up. But maybe I'd have to do just one rook here and open up the a file, because I mean, if I were to play a5 and he doesn't take and I take, he could potentially take with the c pawn, and then he would be on the open file. That's kind of interesting. So yeah, leaving one rook here, that way he can't ever take with the c pawn, or at least he wouldn't be able to do it. I kind of wonder here, so is it my move? Maybe, I mean, I probably should get the king involved, but I wonder if maybe, yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, getting the king up makes sense. Yeah, I'd be curious to kind of stick this. I'm going to download the PGN, so at the end maybe we can take a look and see how a plan might look. So I'm really curious how that might go. But okay, let's quickly take a look here, because I had a couple things I wanted to ask, like that idea of yeah, c6, and this is listed as a good rather than an excellent move. So my other idea was to play. So I can't move the pieces here. Okay, my other idea was to play a6 and later play for c5 in one shot, whereas in the game I had to play it two moves. So yeah, I think that might be an interesting idea to look at too, the Stockfish. That seemed like something that I should have done. Yeah, I had a lot of subpar moves, like not excellent moves, which of course makes sense. I mean, a lot of games I have those. Yeah, c5 also the computer didn't like, mistimed maybe. So maybe just getting developed and castled first. But I don't think they're bad moves. I mean, yeah, I mean here, if I were to just ignore this and castle, you could take here, takes, and then just win a clean pawn. And even like pushing c4, same thing. Taking I didn't really like, because, well, he has two options for taking back. He can take with the queen, but he can even take with the c pawn. And then I can't really play c4 if I want to, although I probably wouldn't, I guess, in a lot of cases. Although takes, if he takes with the pawn, I actually would be able to take with the c pawn, then he would have to take back, and then he'd have double isolated d pawn. So he would have to take with the queen. So bishop takes, queen takes, and maybe just castles. But still, that helps. That trade probably helps me more than it helps him, because even though I've got my bishop outside of the pawn chain, it's still sort of fighting against these central pawns on light squares. Okay, well anyway, we got this. Knight f6 was not great, but not bad. Yeah, the thing is, when you play a good move rather than an excellent move, they don't tell you sort of why. You have to look at it on the computer for that, because they're not bad moves. When you make inaccuracies and mistakes, then it shows you. So all these ideas seems pretty valid, even if they weren't perfect. Yeah, this probably wasn't great. I mean, another way to try to challenge would have been to drop the knight back, but if I drop the knight back here, oops, after this, if I drop the knight back here, then I would have expected him to actually drop the bishop back, because I think these London system players, they just really want to have this bishop on this diagonal. I mean, that's like, I'm sure they play it like almost every game. They're used to having the bishop there. He played h3 on purpose to try to keep the bishop. Still though, if I play knight here, he plays bishop back, can I slowly try to play like f6, e5 without like ruining my position? Or maybe a slower build-up, like similar to what I did in the game, where I tried to induce sort of a weakness over here. Because my idea was, and then maybe try to attack this d5 pawn. Because my idea here was something like, yeah, here it's hard for him to move this pawn because I can take, so he has to move the knight first. So he was able to protect everything in the game, but he had to use a few moves to do it. And then, as you saw, like the play got a little more focused on the queen side, and that's where my pawn chain is pointing. So he didn't really get to try to drum up anything on the king side. Also, this pawn structure is kind of interesting. I haven't really played it very much, but having the pawn on g6 and e6, it does make it a little bit harder for him to like barrel through with an f-pawn push, because I can always just take it. So maybe that's one of the benefits of this. I could also at some point maybe play for the queen trade, takes, and then try to play like on the c file again. Yeah, because if the queens come off, he can't put the rook immediately here on e3 because I can take it. The rook on e3 would sort of be that lateral defense idea, so that he could replicate what he did in the game with moving the knight, and then maybe like playing b4. But anyway, in any of those cases, I've got a permanent knight on c4, which is kind of nice. So yeah, a6 the computer didn't like so much. Chess.com computer. You'll have to look at Stockfish to see. Okay, yeah, b6 was a nice restriction move, and I've got two pieces covering this. So like now, if he plays here, I can still take this pawn. So he was worried about that. Yeah, he gives me just a permanent outpost for the knight. I mean, I understand he can get it off, but if he takes the knight off, then I get a piece to recapture there. So that was one of the reasons that I put the queen on c7. So he goes to trade it off. Okay, this was a little inaccurate. I don't think it was the wrong rook necessarily. Should I have played b5 to take back with a pawn? And then b5, takes, and then maybe play for a5. But he's already got his rook on the b file, so he's kind of a little faster than me there. Very difficult for me to look at, especially because I'm really inexperienced with these kind of plans of just playing on the queen side. Like I almost always try to attack when I can. Although I feel like in half these games that we've played, I've had black in a lot of my. I don't have that many live Blitz videos and live rapid videos, but I feel like I've had black in the majority of them. And I end up playing like these passive positions. But I really do like to play attacking chess. But I guess you do have to play the position and kind of play what calls for it. So I'm trying to get better at not just always trying to attack. Yeah, king f8 was a little slow. I wonder if I should have tried to go for one of those plans like immediately try to create a second weakness, because with the one weakness, I'm not really going to be able to to crack them. So yeah, let's see if we can download this PGN. Where is this now? This is the PGN. I know how to do it in the old one. I can probably do it from my archive. I can show you how to make a PGN actually really quick. It's really easy. I showed this in an earlier video, but you might not have seen it. So you gotta highlight and copy all this and then just open up Notepad, or I have Notepad++, which is a little bit, it's also free and very light, and it's got a lot more functions, so I like this. But you just paste it in, and you have to save it as a PGN. So, I'm going to save it into my skid folder, bin, and games, my games, and then, okay. So you have to actually save this as a PGN file, not a text file. So you just do .pgn so that your chess program can read it. Then you can open up Stockfish or whatever, or open up Skid or whatever your computer program is, and just open it. You can turn on the engine here, and let's flip this so we can see it from our perspective. And yeah, let's see. Yeah, C6 was a little beak. So the thing I was thinking about is, like, if I played E6, can he just play this knight move immediately? Because I don't have a queen check. Oops. So I don't have a queen check on A5. Yeah, I didn't really think of. I guess I can play knight A6. I often don't look at those moves just because they feel so unnatural. But I guess I'm going to be able to play C6, kick the knight, and then reroute the knight. Not quite sure what I rerouted through B4. So let's see, A3, C6, knight just has to go back, so it's total waste for white. I wonder if he could have played C4 there, actually. Let's see, instead of A3. So if he just plays C4. Take C4. E3. Knight D5. Oh, then I get a square for the knight where I hit this bishop, and he hasn't gotten to play A3 yet, so that's one of probably a couple problems in that position. Plus, he's got to get that pawn back, so it's going to take him a couple moves. I mean, I know Reti players are always used to getting the pawn back later. But okay, so knight A6, I guess, would have been an okay remedy to that. I just kind of hate playing those knight moves out to the outside if I don't have to. But okay, in the game, in the game I played C6, oops, which again ended up being a little bit slow just because I had to play it in 2 moves, but I don't think it like kills me or anything. It's still a pretty even game. So if you want to play knight H4, yeah, and just hit my bishop, I mean, I kind of expected that. I think I mentioned it in the commentary. In which case, I'd be curious to see, should I leave it? Should I play E6? Computer just wants to accept this pawn structure if it happens. You get a nice clamp on the E4 square, and you are able to play F6 at some point later in the game. Like if he gets a piece that's really annoying on E5, you could eventually play F6, although probably that would be a while before that makes sense. Plus the structure where you get like if I ever play the pawn up to G6 and fiend counter the bishop, the pawns on the light squares and the bishop on the dark squares kind of are a nice complement. So I don't think that'd be too bad. So maybe that's not a bad way to play either. Okay, so he played A3, right? Let's see. And Yeah, their computer's already giving me an advantage here. Knight takes e5, huh? c5 it didn't like so much, and the chess.com computer didn't either. So knight takes, bishop takes, bishop d6. So similar idea, but just playing it immediately. If he plays here, bishop takes e5, f takes e5, knight h5 really. And there's no fork here because, well, you can just play here and then at the very least you could take that bishop. Yeah, that, oops, obviously not that. The knight would probably be trapped otherwise. And, well, actually you could bring it back here and get a nice piece. I'm surprised that that's not best. But yeah, his whole king side is wrecked here, and he can't castle. I think most players would recapture with the rook, so maintaining the idea of castling long. And yeah, but I've got this nice bishop looking at where his king wants to go. My queen can come out. I've got potential pawn moves here. I could even castle long too if I wanted to. So this is probably, like if you try to do something like this, I've got this check here too, picking up a pawn. The material would start to fall there, although it's a little bit dicey. Although I have this bishop defending nicely, so I probably can afford to grab a pawn and open up some of the pawns that might be shielding the king side. So, so I guess that probably wouldn't make sense to play if he just takes, plays e3, which probably he'll play because he's got these moves sort of pre-programmed. Then I can play for e5 immediately because the queen's here on d6. And if he's just to take this, well, my pieces are getting freed up a little bit. I've got a lead in development. He's 2 moves away from castling, whereas I'm 1 move away. Or I guess 1 move and then he can castle, and I can castle on the next move. And yeah, I mean, I don't think like this is anything huge here, but I mean, it's pretty nice to be able to play that for black, I think. Right out of the opening instead of being defending. So what did we get here? I played c5, okay. Just developed, and I'm sort of not playing optimal moves here. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, this was 1 movement. So takes, and yeah, he probably doesn't want to take with the pawn because then I can take here, and he's got double ace-legged pawns. So he would have to take with the queen if he wants to avoid that, which I assume he would. And just castles or c8, a6. Let's just say castles, castles, and see what we do here. So starting to try to play on the queen side here. Okay, so getting a little bit far there, but that's how the position could look. Okay, so I believe he takes. Okay, I went for this sort of roundabout way to try to get his piece off, and okay, so the computer doesn't mind leaving that there for a second. Just rook c8 or queen c7, and just trying to get onto, I guess, the queen side and start play there. Get pieces towards the queen side. So what should he have done here? Knight a2. Yeah, that is a tough move to see, I guess. King h7, I'm sure that I wouldn't have played. Not quite sure what that does. I mean, probably I would have went for this anyway. So the idea is to come into here. That's interesting. Feels a little less stable there. If I just kick it, what is... he's trying to come back over here, okay. And it's hard for me to play f6, I guess, because this pawn would be backwards. Although if he does play the knight over, I can take it. But then we kind of neutralize each other's knights. Okay. Queen h4. So temporarily hitting this pawn and kind of forcing a decision, but then c3. So this is what I was talking about in the game, where I was kind of wondering if I could induce a b pawn push, then this c3 pawn would be backward. It ended up happening in the game. I thought he was going to play b3 to try to kick the knight, but again, it was hard for him to do that without, like, for example, moving his rook back over to the a file and then playing it. And in the game, he didn't have his knight here on d3, so that didn't allow that. Because the other thing the knight on d3 does is it protects the b2 pawn. So if he wanted to move the rook back over and try to kick the knight, his pawn wouldn't be hanging here on b2. That's still really slow for white, so I feel like black has achieved something if that's what white ends up going for. I don't know if that's really a great plan or anything. I just think that would be fine for me. So yeah, so now I am able to jump my knight in. And I kind of like this idea because I think it's going to be really hard for people to find this whole maneuver idea for white. And even still, it's not like it was really worse for me. It's just pretty even. Yeah, queen f6, I looked at earlier. I don't think I looked at it here. But I think the idea of queen a6 in conjunction with the knight here is kind of making it a little bit annoying for him to protect his pawns. I mean, at the moment he's protecting the d4 pawn, but I just feel like, he's kind of making some concessions here with his piece placement, it seems like. Yeah, I thought about queen a5, but earlier, I think. Queen a5 is interesting. Say he goes in immediately here. Wow, I got a cool tactic here. Ah, nice. Can't take here because the rook hangs. So that just wins a pawn. And his queen is under attack, so that means he would have to do something. I feel like most players would do this. But yeah, now I've got potentially taking this pawn, because he could push it. Knight takes b7, but that seems like... Ah, okay. I got you. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking I could pin the knight, but obviously the queen was under attack. Okay, well, we're getting pretty far in that variation, but it's kind of interesting. Whoops. I just lost my place. Okay, so we got down to here. And... okay, I pushed this pawn just to keep this out. That's still a pretty nice move, I think. And I found queen c7, which is just getting on the file here, protecting my pawn. Knight d6 I didn't think about. Just immediately starting to put pressure on the backward pawn and maybe jumping the knight out here, or if he plays f3 as it did in the game to stop me from putting a knight on e4. Well, he did it after my knight was off the board, which I thought was weird. Oh, that was to get his king out. But yeah, maybe knight here. And let's see, rook behind the pawn. This rook makes sense. c3. Yeah, now a5, trying to break up these pawns. If he plays here, a4, trying to cement this weakness. Queen e2. Yeah, I guess white is reduced to kind of shuffling around here and trying not to lose. I mean, he can't really ever... like, if he tried to do this prematurely, then I could just take the pawn. He doesn't have enough support here. Okay, so I'm getting pawns here. I guess it's the long-term kind of idea, and I'm also getting an outside passer. So I thought it was weird that I was up a piece there for a second, but you can't really keep it, at least not easily, I don't think. But you get pawns and a passer that way. It's pretty good, and you still have, I think, the more active pieces. Okay, so all right, so I just played the rook over, and takes obviously to keep that file open and keep the pressure on the backward pawn. Yeah, a5 was interesting. It was actually better here, so this is where I want to start looking at it. Okay, so a5. If he takes it, either capture makes sense. Like rook takes, and I start to get pressure on both pawns. But let's say b takes. Like it's hard for him. Like if he tries to get on the open file for counterplay, then I can do this, and I'm hitting pawns. And for example, I'm protecting the pawn twice here, and I've got a passer. Actually, that move would be dumb for white, so not quite sure what. You can't really protect these weaknesses. And if he were to take the queen first, and maybe he would have to play something like this. And let's say he wanted to try to protect the pawn laterally like he did in the game. Then I get on the open file. And the problem is if he ever wants to get on the open file, he's got to give up a pawn. So probably would have to do something passive like this. Then I'm first on the file. He can't really challenge it. And I'm just coming with the rook, and that's terrible. So yeah, a5 earlier probably would have been better. He doesn't have to take it, of course. What if he just pushes it, actually? So threatening to triple here. I don't know what he's... e3. Tripled. Yeah, again, I'm coming in first, and at some point I'm going to have pressure on both these pawns. Like, let's just say, yeah, probably has to play c3, because if he doesn't play c3, well, in any case, I'm going to take and win a pawn at the very least. So c3, queen b3 starting to infiltrate, probably threatening to put a rook here, and then just, well, of course, just threatening this pawn too. And with his rook sort of disjointed, it's hard for him to coordinate pieces and kick out my major pieces. Because a lot of times the way you kick out a queen or something is by, you already have your rooks connected, and you can, attack the queen with one of the rooks. But that can't be done here. So yeah, it looks like I'll have all the pressure and the play in all these positions. So slowly I kind of got to what I was envisioning, but probably I envisioned the wrong way to get there. Okay, it was a pretty interesting game, though. I felt like I played pretty well, especially after the last game disaster. So hope you like that, and I'll see you around.